All right, so I woke up this morning and I have one question on my mind. Why is it so hard to keep an employee? So I asked ChatGPT, what is wrong with Gen Z right now? And it generated this title. Is your career path a cul-de-sac? Why Gen Z won't stick around? And the whole reasoning behind this video is that my current Gen Z is the least capable of all of my hires that I've had over the last 3 years. He's completely incompetent. And worst of all is that he doesn't understand that these $15 to $20 hour jobs are not designed to support human life. There's a reason why Gen Z has to move home. There's a reason why all of my employees have had to live at home. You can't be independent working one job making $15 to $20 an hour. It's impossible. And when you try to force your will into a position in which you just simply can't do it, because I asked him, are you going to work a second job or a third job? And he says, no. And I thought to myself, well, if he's already complaining and he's only been there 7 days about not having money to save and not having a relationship, can you imagine how much worse it's going to get for him when the stress starts to really pile up in coming weeks or months? They're just not going to be able to do it. And I feel bad for Gen Z because it's not their fault. They did go to college. They have liberal arts degrees like myself. And there's something that someone pointed out in the comment section this morning is that people who take their education seriously are more affluent when it comes to being able to do more things. There's a reason why I'm a bodybuilder, a photographer, a writer. There's all these other things that you have to develop in yourself, but you have to be willing to learn. And that willingness to learn comes with a certain adaptive adaptability to stressful situations and in situations in which you're not getting what you want. For instance, I've been I've been in the gym for most of my adult life, and I've hit a plateau. I'm not getting any bigger, I'm not losing any weight, I'm just staying the same for the same amount of work. What does that mean? It means you have to change the training. And with Gen Z, I don't see them being able to adapt. They don't seem to be willing to move in a way in which they're ducking and diving and dodging. They're just taking it. And when they're taking it, they're already planning an exit. And so that was the opening monologue. I've got 5 AI generated talking points. Let's get into them. Imagine this: you're fresh out of college, full of ideas and energy and ambition. That's what's happening. We have hundreds of thousands of fresh college students that come out of college thinking big ideas, huge ideas. They're thinking about their careers, they're thinking about how much money they're going to make. And for the men, there is no wiggle room. They have to make a certain amount, they have to drive a certain car, and they have to live in a certain zip code. Well, that's not happening. And all that ambition is going to waste because they're coming into a workplace that doesn't care about their ideas, doesn't like their energy, and isn't very comfortable with how socially awkward they are. In fact, my last one was so weird, I had to get rid of him. I mean, he was just plain bizarre. And I imagine the kid just has gotten away with behaving like that in the few jobs he's ever had in his life, and he just thinks that's normal. But to me, I found it incredibly weird and uncomfortable. And yet, when other people were around him, they'd ask me about it. It's like, why doesn't that kid talk? Or why is that kid so off? And I'm like, I don't know. They've all been very, very odd people. And not odd as in ordinary technology people. When you're dealing with millennials and technology, you're used to the khaki pants and the polo shirts. These guys are just plain weird. Showing up in the workplace wearing Crocs? I don't get it. Talking point number two. You're ready to conquer the world, climb the corporate ladder, and make a name for yourself. Gen Z isn't going to make a name for themselves with their work ethic. If you have someone who's going to come into the workplace and say they want to work from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then still get a full time paycheck, I commend you. I think that's reasonable as a, I'm not a job creator, but demanding realistic time off for people. Because remember, at the end of the day, everyone is still a person, regardless of the low pay, the crappy conditions, the abuse, the harassment in the workplace. It still comes down to people being people. And most people don't want to be corporate people. I've spent my entire adult life trying to run away from the technology field because I don't like it. I dislike it to the nth degree. And that's why I have four liberal arts college degrees because I didn't want to have to work in an environment where you're constantly surrounded by stressful situations, not enough people to get the work done, primitive technology, and people who don't know that they're dumb. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, sometimes you're at your desk and you see someone doing something and you're just kind of like look up and you think, how is that person still here? We've had a lot of movement of people coming into this workplace. It's a technology company, right? It's and you have people who show up who don't know how to type, who don't know how to use technology, who don't own cell phones. And these are the same people that are going to have to interact with Gen Z in the workplace who thinks that they're there to make a name for themselves. When the reality is they're there to fulfill the lowest level positions. And Gen Z's not comfortable with that. They do not like where they are in the corporate ladder because they're at the very bottom of it. And they aren't going to climb it with that attitude of theirs because, like my job is 100% a dead end job. There's no place to go. You're not going to climb up into management. You're not going to move over to another department. It is a job that's designed for a person who's going to take it for 3 to 6 months. If you stay there longer than 3 to 6 months, it means you don't care about your career. And chances are you've stopped caring about your job. Like my last one that slept all day. Literally. In management believed that I was making it up. That no person would come to work and sleep all day. As long as you can get away with it, you're going to do it. And that's all he did. And I am still very bitter about that because it meant that I had to spend almost 5 months without anyone to help me in the workplace. And I just watched it pile up. I wasn't going to do that work if corporate didn't want to understand that they made a mistake because they rarely will admit to making mistakes, especially when it comes to hiring mistakes, because they make hiring mistakes every single day. And this whole including everyone idea, you can't. If a person isn't going to work out in the workplace, it usually shows within the first day. You look at the way that they carry themselves in the workplace. And with Gen Z, it's anxiety, it's panic, it's depression, it's mental health that's oozing out all over the floor. See, with previous generations, we try to keep our mental health in check. When it comes to this generation, they want to talk about it. I've never had a man tell me that he was depressed at work. Like, come to me and say, you know what? I'm probably not going to be able to do this job because I'm so severely depressed and financially in a financial situation that's uncomfortable to say the very least. And this is coming from a financial situation where they were already on the skids. They were already on their way out. From describing the previous positions that this person has had, all of them have tried to nudge him out of the workplace, mainly by just not giving this person work. You hire them, but then you don't give them anything to do. And I've been in that situation many times where, you don't have, you're not HR, and you have a person that's sitting around in the office, but they don't know how to do anything and they get frustrated too easily, or they're off task all the time, or all they want to do is talk. I mean, I'm a person that comes to work and I'll sit down and I won't say anything for the first couple of hours of work because I'm that busy. But then you have a person who has work to do, and this is in reference to all of my Gen Z employees. They have plenty of work to do, but they'd rather be on their phone or looking at something on the computer, anything but work, but they still want to get paid. And you just kind of like, I mean, I have looked at the work that's done, that's piling up inside of the assignment desk, right? And I look at it all day, and sometimes only two things get done in the an entire 8 hour day. Two things got done, and I'm like, well, if I had that work ethic, I don't think that I would be here anymore. I think that like the previous three senior managers all had that same attitude. They wanted to show up at work, try to push off as much of their work onto other people as humanly possible. I mean, that's exactly my first week of working for this company was basically the senior manager from 3 years ago saying, you know what? I don't want to do this. Guess what? You're going to do it now. And then spending the rest of the day doing nothing but talking and buying things online. That was the first 6 months to a year of this job for me, just having someone else push off all the responsibilities onto me, and then just sitting there and waiting to see how long it would take before the stress got to me and I started talking about leaving. Because the number one thing that Gen Z won't stick around for is realizing getting into a job, and regardless of the pay, knowing that there's no way out of the mindless, repetitive nature of the entry level job. I've seen them all go through it. They get there, they think this is some sort of good job. And believe me, no one's hiring Gen Z for good jobs. In fact, even for senior level people like myself, getting landing a good job and keeping a good job is not likely because those jobs are very few and they're offered to people. I've been saying this on this channel for a long time. If you're going on to Indeed and taking a job that requires less than 5 years of experience, you're going to be in entry level jobs forever. And the great thing about entry level jobs is that they're not designed, at least in my experience throughout my entire life, they're not designed to give you an avenue to something better. You're not climbing the ladder. In fact, you're actually going in the opposite direction. Okay, so I'm moving on to my one of my last talking points here, since I'm getting onto this specific topic. The career path you're on, it's not a highway to success. It's a cul-de-sac. And that's it. That's exactly the way that I would describe it. My Gen Z workers show up, they evaluate the situation, realize that there's no way out, and instead of continuing to sit there, they exit. They peace out and they're gone. But before they leave, long before they physically leave, they've mentally checked out. And this whole thing, this whole fad with quiet quitting is simply people coming into the workplace and realizing there's nothing here for them. They will never own a home. They will never make enough money to attract a mate. So they can't go out on weekends. They can't go out at night. They can't go on vacation. They don't have a relationship. Their their parents don't understand why, if they went to college, they're not more successful. And society overall finds them unusable. There's a reason why our society doesn't want to hire them. In fact, I had a guy last week tell me, why would I hire from Gen Z when there's plenty of millennials around that will do the job, regardless of knowing that it's a dead end job? And the corporation I work for right now, is the epitome of dead end jobs. Every one of them has nowhere to go, at least in my area. I don't know about other departments, but at least in my area, I've seen the same people there since I started. The only ones that leave are because they go out and they start looking for more money and they find it, and then they're gone. There's no loyalty. Remember, I've been saying this for a long time. The loyalty between the employee and Evil Corp isn't there. And believe me, Evil Corp has no respect for you or your well being. And that's what Gen Z really doesn't like. That instead of creating a positive work environment, these jobs today are the most toxic places you can find yourself. Last night I was tossing and turning on whether or not it's really time for me to start taking a career turn to go somewhere else, that there's more possibility of me getting more resources. I do want a house. I do want a better car. And I do want to eventually go on vacation. This is like I spent my whole life not going anywhere during the summer. Summer's officially over after this weekend. Guess what I did? Nothing. Why? There's no money. In order to do the stuff that causes your life to be enjoyable, you have to have money, right down to the pink taco. No money, no honey. And that's true for all of us. As much as we hate to think of our pathetic, miserable lives in the proletariat, no money, no honey. There aren't very many women who are going to put up with someone who can't afford to take them to Taco Bell 3 times a week. And with the cost of Taco Bell being $20, you better be earning at least $40 just to take the honey to Taco Bell so you can get some honey afterwards. If not, it's just going to be with the old governor, morning, noon, night, midnight, all night. It's just going to be a tug of war in your pants for eternity. It doesn't get any better unless you start making real money, unless you earn yourself a position in society of a respectable job where you can do what I mentioned yesterday. One of the things that ChatGPT said about, I when I asked it, I need to make more money. It was the obvious things: stock, passive income, and real estate. And you think to yourself, if I had all of those things, why would I be sitting here asking an AI how I make more money? Because we all want to uncover how we make more money without having to sell our soul or spread our legs, because there is very few ways. If it was easy to get rich, remember what I say. It would be the 99% who had money, and only 1% of our population would be living in poverty. Only 1% of people would not be making it. Only 1% wouldn't have homes, relationships, and a clear path to retirement, when it's the exact opposite. My final talking point here: there's no upward movement, no new challenges, and worst of all, no growth. Sound familiar? That's your entry level job right there. No upward movement, no challenges other than finding your next entry level job. And unfortunately for myself, this means that I'm going to be training new employees for as long as I stay in my current job, because no one's going to stay. And when people ask me, why does your area have such high turnover? I'm like, the money sucks, the position sucks, and the people who take this job suck. They're not here long term. This is just them floating through, sniffing it. This job doesn't pass the sniff test. No job in my area passes the sniff test. And then people move on to something better. And and the worst part about moving on from entry level jobs is that it's always a lateral move. the pay stays the same regardless of where you go. Unless there's something special about you. Because remember what I say, if you're not worth nothing and you're going to get paid nothing. And that's what entry level is. You're not worth anything, so you get paid nothing. And there's a lot of people who find that statement repulsive or untrue. And I'll tell you what, if I was in a position in where I could either do YouTube full time and make $10,000 a month doing YouTube, I'd be here all day, every day live streaming. But instead, I'm out there in corporate America looking for something that doesn't exist, a golden ticket to a better life. And that's just the way it is. And young people are not going to get what they want out of the workplace in the way that they think that they are. So someone asked me why I didn't make a toxic positivity yesterday morning. It's because I created the video idea and then I ran all of these chores. I had to go to the store, I went to Goodwill, I went to go get my tires checked, I went to go work out for a second time, and then I kind of just got lost. But I do like toxic positivity because it's always a place where I can come to where you just lay it down. And today's topic is retirement. Retirement isn't for poor people. One of my employees' biggest gripes that I hear almost every day is I'm not saving for retirement. Millennial statement. I just look at him. It's like, dude, you're scraping by, man. You're one paycheck from having to move back home on the East Coast into your parents' house because you're not going to make it out here with your attitude. Not willing to work three jobs, not willing to live alone or independent. This Gen Z people are going to be asking their parents for money to cover basic bills until their parents aren't there anymore. And hopefully, once their parents pass, they get a healthy retirement because this is what I've heard from a lot of Gen Z. It's like, I'm waiting for my parents to kick the bucket to inherit the house and their savings. That's their retirement plan. For people like myself who have no family, friends, or anywhere to go lay down when you get old, we're going to be that person who's in that cubicle at Wells Fargo for 4 days. Thanks, John, for sending me that story. There's a story yesterday that happened here in my hometown of an older woman who was in her cubicle at Wells Fargo Bank for 4 days before someone noticed that there was a strong odor of human decay. That's going to be us. We're going to lay down in that cubicle and we're going to meet our end inside of that cubicle without anyone around us noticing. Can you imagine? Not her partner, not her children, not her friends notice that she just vanished and she was at work for 4 days straight. Literally worked herself to the bitter end. And that's where I'm going to leave today's video.